And I'm pretty sure that we've got some new people, so I'm going to come around the room. If you want a pocket constitution, put up your hand. Becky's not here tonight, so we're going to have to sing the national anthem instead of accompany it. But there's one thing we're going to do just a little bit ahead of time. And a little music thing, if I can get my little phone working. Okay, listen up.
Shaking my head and thinking something ain't right. Is it just me? Am I losing my mind? Am I standing on the edge of the end of time? Am I the only one? Tell me I'm not. Who thinks they're taking all the good we got and turning it back? Hell, I'll be damned. I think I'm turning into my old man. Am I the only one willing to bleed? Take a bullet for being free. Screaming what the F in my TV. Telling me, yeah, you're telling me that I'm the only one willing to fight for my love, red and white and the blue, burning on the ground. Another statue coming down in town. Me watching the threads of old glory come undone. Am I the only one not brainwashed? Making my way through the land of the lost, who still gives and worries about his kids as they try to undo all the things he did. Am I the only one who can't take no more screaming? If you don't like it, there's the freaking door. This ain't the freedom we've been fighting for. It was something more. Yeah, it was something more. Am I the only one willing to fight for my love, red and white and blue, burning on the ground? Another statue coming down in town. Me watching the threads of old glory come undone. I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one. Am I the only one who quit singing along every time they play a Springsteen song? Am I the only one who's sitting here still holding on, holding back my tears for the ones who paid with the lives they gave? God bless the USA. I'm not the only one willing to fight for my love, red and white and the blue, burning on the ground. Another statue coming down in town. Me watching the threads of old glory come undone. can't be the only one. I can't be the only one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Aaron Lewis.
Thanks, Rick. Who wants a copy of the Constitution?
Thank you.
Who's here tonight?
Who's here?
Who's here tonight? Patriots.
Oh. We the people.
I always say, what are you doing here tonight? I'm glad you're here. We kind of confused everybody going July the 10th instead of July the 3rd, but July the 3rd, we'd only had probably 20 people in there. So I do appreciate you all coming out. We got a good show tonight set up. I talked to the directors of We the People. There's 5 of us. I talked to them over the weekend, and when there's not any elections, big elections coming up, we're going to start focusing more on safety and children and protecting the children, protecting one another, making sure everybody's alert and knows their surroundings, etc. So tonight's going to be a good meeting. We'll talk about all that. And let's start with singing. We're not going to play it. We're going to sing it. So if everybody wants to do the pledge, stand up and we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who's got a great singing voice in the room? Joe, come on up. You're going to lead the national anthem. Just started.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free and the home of the brave?
Will you come every meeting? That's the best I've ever sang the national anthem. Because I can keep up with them and anyway, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. I've asked my friend Tom, one of the directors of We the People, to say a few words tonight, if he would please. The theme for a while now is going to be leadership. Y'all know what I mean.
And Chuck asked me to just make a few comments before I lead us in prayer tonight on the idea of leadership. I've been teaching in my church on that the last few weeks. And, he was there yesterday and talked to me after service and wanted me to share a little bit. But you know, you think about leadership, a lot of people would just assume that, well, I'm not called to be a leader, I'm not that type, I don't have that type of personality, whatever they might say. And you know, I can understand that. But all of us are leaders. And what I want us to think about is that there's an area of responsibility and there's an area of influence that we all have. For some of us, it may just be our household, our own family. Some of you, it's a business that you run, that you have influence in. Some of you, it's your workplace where you have influence because of who you are and your character and how you carry yourself and how you talk. You can have influence and you can be a leader in things that are good. And, you know, the Bible has a lot to say about that, obviously, in Old and New Testament. I like the Joshua chapter where it talks about God passing the torch from Moses to Joshua. He says, be strong and courageous. Do not turn from the right or from the left. It's important that we know what we believe. It's important that we know what we stand for and we don't back down when there's pressure. And that's one of the things that's going on in our culture right now, as you well know. If you don't say the right things, act the right way, agree with the right philosophies, you get canceled. And there's a force out there that's trying to shut us up. And whether you're overtly Christian or whether you're just conservative, either way, they don't want to hear it. The world out there that we live in, the culture that we live in, for the most part, doesn't want to hear the truth. And that's what we've got to hang on to. We've got to be the ones. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, he says, you're the salt of the earth and you're the light of the world. And if that's the case, and he wasn't talking to just a few leaders, he was talking to all of us because that's what the scripture says. So I just want to encourage you to, take a stand, be bold, use wisdom in how you do it. The Bible says we're supposed to speak the truth in love, so we have to be careful and not be harsh. Sometimes we have to be direct. But don't back down when you are called a bigot or a hater or whatever else they call you. You know, they call you judgmental. One of the things I talked about yesterday in church is that every unchurched unbeliever in the country knows the portion of the verse in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, where it says, judge not that you be not judged. How many times have people tried to use that against you when you made some kind of a comment about something that you felt strongly about? And they said, well, who are you to judge? Well, who are we to judge? You know, if we don't make proper decisions and proper determinations for our lives and our circle of influence, who is? You know, we can't count on the government to do it. We can't count on the schools to do it. We can't count on, even now, our business leaders and workplace to help us do it. We've got to be able to take a stand for what's right. And I think that's important, and I think for all of us, we need to be able to continue to do that and not be fearful and intimidated by the resistance that's coming against us. Well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time here tonight. We thank you for these wonderful people that have gathered. We thank you for all of our wonderful speakers tonight that are going to share with us different aspects of what they're involved in and how we can connect with that. So, Lord, I pray that you'll just let your Holy Spirit guide and direct here tonight. And let us be fruitful in our efforts to hold this nation to accountability and to keep our culture, hopefully, in a place where our kids and grandkids can enjoy a normal, healthy life. We pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much.
What an incredible director we have on We the People. In the last year, I've been called just about every name you can imagine. But the one that affects me probably the most is I'm called an angry man. I'm an angry man. I don't know what's up. I don't know, but it's because when you make a stand, just like Tom was saying, when you make a stand and maybe the majority of the people disagree with you, you get called every name in the book. angry man was the one that hit home with me because I don't think of myself as an angry man. But I guess since Tom and I started this group, we're angry. So be careful, we're angry. A couple little things. I have to always do an ad. I'm a board member out here, that's why I get this room for $200. It rents for $200 on Monday nights and Wednesday nights. Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, it rents for $600. So if anybody has a big event they want to do, it's very affordable. And Tara's on the board, I'm on the board. Of course, Rick shoots at it a lot, but we're, that's the commercial for here. Who's here for the first time tonight? It's a standing joke that I say, where have you been? I've been doing this for 3 years. Where have you been? So, we are not, let me tell you who we are not. We are not a right-wing radical group. We are right of center. There's no doubt about that. And I always say, if 0 is far left and 100 is far right, I'm probably somewhere around a 75. But guess what? 60 and 40 agree on probably 98% of everything. And it's up to us to educate and to talk to people, like Tom said, very, very kindly talk to people and try to educate the people that are left of center to wake up. Wake up. And I think there's a lot of people with the assessments that went on in the last month that hopefully even the left is waking up a little bit. And hopefully we can have some elections that make a little bit of sense in the future. So there's a couple of things. I wanted to invite Carolyn up real quick. She's with the Republican Committee, and she's going to, well, I'll let her tell you. I'll have you there.
Thanks. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Carolyn Caton, and I am the secretary for the Jackson County Republican Party. And I'm here to represent them, to invite you, all of your family, all of your friends, your neighbors, your kids, everyone, to an ice cream social on Saturday, July 22nd, anytime from 1 to 4 or until the food runs out. We'll have hamburgers and hot dogs. I'll probably buy a watermelon or two. We'll have some different kinds of ice cream. I've already bought some real cool toppings like caramel and chocolate, hot fudge. I'll even have sprinkles for the kids. So it'll be $10 for any adults and $5 for children 12 and under, and it's at the headquarters. Headquarters on 40 Highway, July 22nd, anytime from 1 to 4. And like I said, it's super cheap, goes to a great cause, and we'd love to see you there.
Perfect. Thank you. I always forget my commercials. If you're not on our email list, there's a sheet of paper to give us your email address and check whether you want to be on the Sheepdogs email and We the People, or just We the People. The Sheepdogs is a group that meets from 6 to 7 out here, and we named it appropriately. It's just we're helping people become safer. We're helping people become more alert. We're helping people that maybe have their conceal and carry become safer on how they handle their conceal and carry weapon. But the Sheepdogs is more about alert, more about paying attention, more about your home safety, your subdivision safety, the what ifs and the why buts. Just so if you all can come at 6 o'clock next
September.
it'll be August, wouldn't it? Oh no, we're not having a Sheepdogs in August. Just it's always the first Monday night of every month, and September will be the next one for Sheepdogs at 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock's We the People. So do the email. We have a book of business. If you own a business, bring your business cards up for the book of business. We help promote everybody in here. We put an email out once a month promoting your business, and just want to help each other out, help like-minded people out. Does that make sense? I hope that continues to grow because I just think it's a great idea, even if I did have it. There's some kind of a cord up here. What's this cord go to, Kara?
I think a laptop.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It's been here a while.
Whoever it is, or who wants it. Whoever wants it can have it. It's been in my box for about 6 months. Is that yours?
No, doesn't that go to that, that control panel?
No, you talking about the PA?
Yeah.
Anyway,
No.
It looks like that one.
also,
Hey, Tim, we're gonna be on Labor Day.
yes, we do Labor Days because people are usually done with Labor Day in the afternoon anyway. And yeah, we're gonna do it on Labor Day. There's this chocolate company. Has anybody heard of Jeremy's Chocolates? Hershey Chocolate is coming out with a chocolate bar called He/She. Instead of Hershey, He/She. Well, Jeremy's Chocolates, that I think is a great commercial they have too. They came out with candy bars called He/Him and She/Her.
Oh my God. Perfect.
One of them has nuts. I guess by the laughter you can figure it out, right? I bought a bunch of candy bars. They're $5 a piece. I'm not making a penny on them, but if anybody wants a candy bar or 2 candy bars, just put it in that little bowl, and you can have the candy bars on the way out. But I just thought I just love this company and I love their whole deal, and it's a conservative attitude. They're a very conservative company. Thank you. Okay. Our first speaker is Callie Michael. Callie Michael, just to... I don't want to steal her thunder, but she made national news
Yes.
a year and a half ago when she started up a Turning Point USA at Lee Summit West. And they kind of turned her tables over and made a big deal out of it. It made national news, and she was on Tucker Carlson and all that. But you can't stop this girl. Because now she's going to UMKC, and she leads Turning Point USA in the entire Kansas City metropolitan area. We need our children and our grandchildren to join Turning Point with Callie. Yes.
Yes, so like Chuck said, I'm Callie. I just graduated from Lee Summit West High School this year, but a year ago when I was still a junior, I did try to start a Turning Point chapter at my school. And if you don't know, Lee Summit West is about 2,000 kids. So about 2,000 kids protested my chapter, and I did get a glass table thrown at me. And so that ended up making national news. I was on Daily Wire and a couple local news outlets. And then after that, Turning Point ended up hiring me, even though my school didn't really like me for Turning Point. But I ended up working for them from January of this year till May for an internship. So yes, I worked with Turning Point around the metropolitan KC area, and worked with other schools to help them start Turning Point chapters without getting tables thrown at them. And I helped Lee Summit, Blue Springs South. I'm still in the process, even though I still don't technically work for them anymore because it was an internship. I'm still in the process with a few schools and hubs. So if you don't have high school, like if you're homeschooled, or if you want to make a community hub, there's a hub in Lone Jack and in a couple of other counties near us that I'm still involved with. And so I'm actually leaving this Wednesday for another Turning Point conference. I just got back from Texas a month ago for Young Women's Leadership Summit, and I got to hear a ton of people speak that were also like Laura Ingram, Laura Trump, and Riley Gaines even, if you've heard about her, who she went through a lot, not really the same as me, but she was in San Francisco, held hostage, speaking at a Turning Point event, and I got to hear her speak, and now I'm going to leave on Wednesday for the Student Action Summit. So I'm still, learning a lot, getting involved, networking with people, and I want to just talk about why I got involved in politics in the first place. So when I was 15 years old, COVID happened, and I realized that people were starting to get really opinionated about their beliefs, so I tried to figure out what I wanted. If I wanted to stick with the beliefs that my parents had me grow up with, going to church and conservative American values, or what the mainstream media and all my friends were telling me to believe in and telling me what to do. All the other organizations and Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ communities that were kind of shoving it down my throat, and I'm sure you all understand that. So when I decided I wanted to stick up for the beliefs that I grew up with, my American values of free speech, and I kind of started to get canceled, like Chuck was talking about. You're going to get canceled if you stand up for what you believe in. And our fellow director talked about, you stand up for what you believe in with your faith and your values, and you're going to get canceled. I lost a lot of friends. Being a 15-year-old girl is kind of hard when you're getting death threats coming at you on social media, people making posts about you, videos about you, and you didn't really do anything except stand up for what you believe in. But if you think that, how society is today, very polarized and division, that you don't even understand how it is in high school. So high school, with already being a lot of drama and not super fun, the polarization and division within high school students, especially high school girls, the women probably know what I'm talking about, it's kind of rough. And so I had to learn how to get through it with a lot of people behind my back and supporting me, even in silence. I knew that I had God and family and friends, very little friends, but a few friends sticking beside me that were able to help me, get through high school. So now I'm out of high school, now I'm in college, and I'm going to be still involved with Turning Point. And I ended up writing, when I was 16, I wrote a paper about abortion because my school told me I couldn't write one for an assignment, so I wrote it anyways. But I didn't write it for school, I just wrote it for myself. I wrote it for myself just, because I'm a learner. I love to read. I have been reading political books since I was 15 years old, which, many 15-year-old girls don't do. But I've been reading political books. I wanted to write, and so I wrote a paper, like a 10-page paper about abortion, the ins and outs from both perspectives, just for my own knowledge. And then a friend of mine ended up getting it published on a conservative outlet on their webpage. So if you want to, you can go look at it, but you don't have to. And anyway, so the website's called The Right View. I'm pretty sure, I'll make sure to go look at it. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And they published a lot of people's papers and stories, and so they let me post mine there. And after that, I got, that was when I was 16, so then I went to a couple conferences. I got to ask Charlie a question at one of his conferences, which led me to want to start a chapter. We know how that ended up. And I, throughout all of this, just really, really wanted people to be unified again. I wanted people to come back to the American values. And even though none of people here look a day over 30, we need some young people involved in this. And
All good.
But like Chuck said, we need your kids, your grandkids, people my age to step up and stand up. So the people my age, they just scroll on their phones, they look at social media, and they're kind of blinded by what's going on in the world. They don't know the facts, they don't know the truth, they don't know what they really believe in. They kind of are told what to believe in, because if they don't believe that, they're canceled like I was. And so not everyone has a lot of support like I do. And I think it's in 1 Timothy where it says, don't let you being young discourage you. But the way that we're not discouraged is we have other people encouraging us, people that are of age, people that's gone through what we've gone through. And so without my parents or family members encouraging me to keep going, I don't know if I would have been able to. So we really do need in this movement for people to wake up and see that what they're being told is lies, and that the left's agenda is not what is really what's best for them and for their country. And to do that, we need to continue to encourage them and to, through love, kind of be direct and don't be too harsh. But I now, out of Turning Point, have the great opportunity of being your Miss for Missouri for the Miss America pageant. This was an opportunity granted to me or just very recently, and so I'm kind of getting thrown into this. I don't have a lot of pageant experience besides being made princess when I was 6 years old. So it's been a while since I've been in that area, and so it's a whole new world, as you can imagine. So I'm getting resources, I'm getting stuff put together. There's a lot that goes into it, and so I'm just here telling you about this great opportunity that I get to have to network with people and get to be Miss Missouri, so that I can go to the Miss America pageant in August and get to meet all these people. And if I end up, winning Miss America, I get to go around the country and meet with organizations and people and put on my social media platforms advocating for what we all want, which is, the truth to be heard. And so as I might be, famous in Lee Summit, I'm not super able to broadcast this message nationwide. Besides the one national news story that was happened last year, I'm kind of ready to make national news again. So I kind of want to, get somewhere with this pageant, because I believe that we do need conservative voices in every aspect. So with pageantry, there's not a ton that happens, and some people that are volunteering for some organizations or helping kids, which is all awesome and good, and I'm still doing that too, and because I really do care about kids, I promise. But I really want to make it known that we need to bring young people together through, pageants and other aspects to learn about the truth and bring back American values. Because obviously here we all know the truth, but it's hard with people scrolling on social media and are blinded by this, right? So I thankfully have woken up, and I want to wake up my fellow generation, my Gen Zers, and I would really love your support and help. So I did put on my sash and my crown. If you wanted to take a look at it, it's kind of fancy. And yeah, take pictures. Of course, I'd love to take pictures. And I put out my Venmo if you wanted to donate. If it's on your heart to donate to this, because it's kind of costly, I would really appreciate it. I even printed out some tax forms if you wanted to put it on your taxes. And I would just, you go to one time. But if you feel it on your heart to donate at all, I'd also have a bucket for cash or checks or anything. But do not feel like that's why I came here, was to take your money. But I just wanted to talk to my fellow, organizations, and just let them know what's going on with me. I've met a bunch of you already before, so I'm just giving you little updates in my life. It seems like my life's kind of crazy, but I make it work. God helps me through all of it. And just thank you so much for coming out tonight and listening to me speak. And I appreciate all of you so much.
Take care of our friend Callie on your way out, if you don't mind, because it is expensive for the dresses and everything.
How do you know, Chuck?
Pardon?
How do you know, Chuck?
Well, there was a time in my, I wanted Callie to go first because she's so optimistic and so smiley and so positive. Because we got a couple of harder things to talk about tonight, and I wanted to bring Storm up, Storm Dillon Schneider, and she's going to talk for a little bit. She's got a couple of other speakers that are going to speak. Now, okay, I won't say it. You just do whatever you want to do. I was going to say something about your friend, but I wrote this. He knows what.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. So, let me put my glasses on. I'm gonna get through this. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chuck, for letting me do this.
Sure.
Good evening, friends. Friends who have become family. You guys are all like family to me. We've gone through some tough times together, and you guys have all been there for us. I do want to say that God is just awesome, isn't he? He is just perfect. He's sovereign. He's omnipotent. And he's in control. I know everything looks like it's falling apart, but he's in control. God's plan is perfect. And that means there is purpose for the pain. Great loss moves us to determined action. I want to say a little prayer, so if you wouldn't mind indulging me. Father God, I pray right now that the words that I speak would be all of you and less of me. More of you and less of me, Lord. I pray this in your name. Amen. Many of you guys know who I am. For those that don't, my name is Storm Dillon Schneider. And this is my story. This is my family's story. I'm shaking. Many of you know I lost my son. We lost our son at 9:27 a.m. p.m. on June 25th, 2021. We got that call. The one that makes your mind go numb, your heart heavy, feels like it's going to crush you. You can't breathe, you can't think, and your body won't work. We became that family. We lost our son Jason to a fentanyl overdose, and we knew nothing about this drug. I've invited Dan Cummings and Larry Beatty from the Combat Drug Task Force. They are truly heroes. While we lived our lives in oblivious to this evil, they worked tirelessly, day after day and year after year, waging war on this epidemic and trying to keep it from our doors. They're going to speak later. They can help us understand the history and provide knowledge which can be powerful in this fight. When I say it's a fight, let's also remember Ephesians 6. We fight not against flesh and blood. This is a spiritual battle, and the enemy wants our children, our young people, and the generations that come after that. We need to pray like never before, and we need to pray protection over these warriors and the others like them that's fighting this battle on a daily basis. My family and I are determined to fight hard and bring awareness, education, and prevention so that we can spare another family from having to go through this heart-wrenching loss and pain. Perhaps then my son Jason's life will have had meaning. When I tell others about my story, I have many people say, my son or daughter would never do that. They're in sports, they're good kids, they're on the honor roll. I say a silent prayer for them. You see, my son Jason did everything possible to make me so proud of him. He was an honor student, an athlete, went to college, played semi-pro baseball, was the center of our family. He was our right-hand man. We depended on him for a lot of things. He was the protector of his brothers and loved his family fiercely. He always wanted family dinners, made sure his brothers stayed connected and were accounted for. So I say this. Addicts don't always look like what we think they should look like. His phone told the story he'd only been using for a couple of months. It has been 2 years, almost to the day, since we buried him July 7th. It seems harder with each passing year. Yesterday I did listen to a DEA administrator, Ann Milgram, as she gave an interview in which she stated that 110,000 Americans died from overdoses last year. 200 of those Americans died of fentanyl every day. 200 Americans every day died of a fentanyl overdose. Do you know how many Americans we lost during the Vietnam War? 220. That was considered a war. How can we be losing hundreds of people a day to this epidemic and the government stays strangely silent? This is not Democratic, Republican, liberal, conservative, left or right. This drug doesn't care who you are, what age you are, what color you are, if you're rich or poor. In Jackson County, opioid overdose is the #1 killer, with 70% of it being from fentanyl. 1 in 5 of these deaths are under the age of 15 years old. Our grandson is 16 years old. This is breaking my heart. It's the ugly truth that no one wants to admit, talk about, or even believe. Here are a few things that I felt I should share. I would recommend drug testing your children randomly for a couple of reasons. 1, to save their lives, of course. 2, it gives them a way out for peer pressure. Yes, I know. I would also, once again, also recommend that you access their phone. There's secret apps that you can put on their phones, and then you can see who they're texting and Snapchatting with. I know it's an invasion of privacy, but it's better than dead. Let me remind you, 1 in 5 deaths are under 15. And always carry Narcan. You can now purchase it over the counter. We need to wake up. We're in World War III. China unleashed the COVID virus and killed the frail and the weak. Now they're flooding the Mexican border with fentanyl through the drug cartels. They're killing our healthy people, healthy military-aged people. I recently started a Facebook page. Missouri Moms Against Fentanyl. I want it to be a place for comfort, but also action. A group that as we grow in numbers, we grow in influence and power. If this is something you'd like to belong to or you're interested in, please contact me. We need to get in front of this with awareness, education, and prevention. This drug is so highly addictive that once addicted, it is incredibly hard to overcome. In fact, I've come across some that I could tell that was on drugs, and I asked him, "What do you want?" And he said it was fentanyl. All I could do was ask him if he knew Jesus. Depending on what website you follow, the life expectancy of a fentanyl addict is between 7 and 12 years. I only know a little bit about this war, so let me introduce you to one of the brave warriors that has been fighting this war against drugs for years. He knows much more than me, and Larry Beatty is going to tie it all up, informing us of what we can be doing as a group and individually to help win this war, and more importantly, what they need from us besides daily prayers for protection. I love all of you guys. You've all helped me so much, helped my husband so much. We love you guys so much, so thank you. Now, let's welcome Dan Cummings to speak. He's going to speak back there. And these guys are heroes.
I don't normally get out in public. I can't tell you how I feel about Storm and your family. Callie, you're a hard act to follow. So you're making it rough on me. I normally don't speak in public, but I've got 26 years of strictly drug enforcement in Jackson County. This is the worst I've seen it. I've got 45 years in law enforcement, and we are in a crisis epidemic. So that's why I'm here. Storm asked me to talk. I don't normally talk in front of people. I've worked in covert units for 26 years. My job is to stay out of the public eye. So that's why I would say no. I'm still heavily involved in several investigations, very high-level investigations. So I don't really want my face out there. They know my name. I just don't want them to know really what I look like. So with that, I'm Dan Cummings. I'm with the Jackson County Drug Task Force. For those of you who may not know what the Drug Task Force is, it's a multi-jurisdictional drug task force. It's formed of 14 different police agencies in Jackson County. 9 of those agencies provide manpower. We're funded by the community-backed anti-drug tax, which is a combat tax. It's called combat quarter-cent sales tax. So 9 police agencies give me manpower, and I reimburse those salaries to those departments. Our only mission, drugs and violence. If you sell drugs, you're on my radar. If you like to shoot people and have guns, you're on my radar. You made the top of the list, and we're coming after you. So what I want to say to you is I almost want to apologize that I didn't do my job well enough to save yourself. I take it personal. That's why I'm still here after 45 years. I believe we're doing something good in this drug task force, and I'm going to do everything in my power as long as I'm here, as long as I can. If you don't know, the issue now is fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic drug. It's heroin. So basically what you're dealing with is heroin in a pill form made to look legit by the Mexican drug cartels. They're mainly a little blue pill. I will leave these. The drug cartels are making them in multicolored now. 90% of what we've recovered is a blue pill. It's got an M on one side and 30 on the other side. Basically, it's a counterfeit OxyContin. OxyContin is derived from oxycodone, which is derived from opium, synthesized from opium just as heroin. So it's heroin in a pill, and nobody was told that in the beginning. We were all sold a raw bill of goods. Purdue Pharma manufactured this. They said it was addictive in less than 1% of their patients. Yeah, right. So what is fentanyl? It's a powerful synthetic opioid. Fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. It's measured in micrograms instead of grams, which is the issue. If you don't know, a gram is a sugar packet. Your little sugar packet when you put your coffee in the morning, that's 1 gram. Fentanyl is measured in micrograms, which is 1/1000th of a gram. 2 micrograms would kill me and most adults in this room. The reason that the death rate isn't higher is because people who use drugs, they develop a tolerance for the drug. So somebody can take 2 milligrams and survive that if they're a heavy heroin user or fentanyl drug user. But DEA says up to 40% of the counterfeit pills manufactured contain at least 2 milligrams of fentanyl. So you got 42% of every drug, every pill made, it contains a possible lethal dose. Opioids, legitimately, they reduce pain, they relieve pain, they're pain relievers. I want to kind of go off track here, and if you'll follow me. My background, I worked 30 years for the City of Independence. I was assigned to the drug unit there. I worked there for 5 years. I went to the drug task force as a detective. I worked there for 5 years. I was also concurrently assigned to DEA on their clandestine laboratory enforcement team. This was the mid-90s at the height of the meth lab problem. So back in the 90s, I worked undercover 3 or 4 years. I worked the lab team for 2 years. I've worked every position in the drug task force that's humanly possible, and I've worked there for 23 years, specifically in the drug task force. I was promoted to sergeant, which then took me out of the drug unit. I went back to, when you get promoted in independence, they send you back to midnight patrol. So I had the luxury of going back to Midnight Patrol. I worked there for 2 years. A position came up with the Drug Task Force, a sergeant's position. I put in for it, I got it, so I'm back. 4 years as a supervisor there, I got promoted to captain, back on Midnight Patrol. So I did that for 2 years. Then I was a commander over the drug unit, the criminal unit, and the cyber crimes unit in Independence. At the end of that, I take that back. Then I went back out to the task force as a sergeant, I'm a captain, I'm back. So, as the officer in charge of the drug task force is a county paid position. The task force wasn't performing as they should, so I was volunteered to go back to the task force in 2010 as still an Independence captain to kind of rearrange their focus, which I did. In 2013, 30 years of independence, I retired, went to the county, said, would you switch this back to a county position? So they did. I applied for my job, I got it back, and I'm still there. So I've been 13 years as officer in charge of the Jackson County Drug Task Force. Everything I'm telling you now is nothing that I've read in a book, nothing I've heard people talk about. It's what I've lived for the last 26 years being in drug units. So the poppy flower is a source of crude opium. Morphine, a principal ingredient in that, is opium. Heroin is synthesized from opium. Oxycodone is synthesized from a component of opium, and OxyContin is oxycodone. So your OxyContin pills, which is legitimately prescribed as a pain reliever, is nothing more than heroin in pill form. And the doctors don't know that. They were sold a raw bill of goods way back in the 90s and the 2000s. So I'm going to go back to the 90s and the 2000s because that's where all of this began. So how do we get here? Two things really stand out: the clandestine meth labs in the 90s and the Florida pain clinics of the 90s and the early 2000s. Methamphetamine is a stimulant. Opioids are depressants. They're two totally opposite drugs. So you say, how does that happen? How does the meth lab crisis of 20 years ago, how does that affect us today? And how do the Florida pain clinics affect us here in Jackson County, in Lake Lotawana, in Independence, Missouri, Blue Springs, and Lee Summit today? And I'm telling you, it does 100%. Meth labs in the mid-1990s started in Independence, Missouri. Basically, meth labs, it took a chemist to make the meth. If you've ever watched Breaking Bad, that was the P2P method of making meth. It's a very complicated process. The cold cook method was started in Independence, basically took ephedrine or pseudoephedrine and converted it to methamphetamine. There were over 35 different ways to do it. You could do it in your kitchen. You could purchase everything legally. When it first started, if you had all the components to make methamphetamine, including red phosphorus, black iodine, and your ephedrine and your pseudoephedrine, it was legal to have. The minute you produce something, it was illegal. So you could catch a guy with a lab, it was all legal to have. And you could go to your farm and home store, your Walmart, anywhere, and you could basically buy everything you needed to make meth. 1994, I've been in the drug unit for 6-7 years, been a cop for 15 years, never seen a meth lab. From 1994 on, I worked 140 to 145 meth labs a year until 1998. So I personally worked over 500 meth labs, and I'm lucky really to even be standing here. The first ones I went in, we didn't know what they were. So we kind of got knocked on our heels. That kind of made me mad. So I made it personal, and I went after every meth cook I could, arrested dozens and dozens. Up until 1998, when I got promoted and I went back to Midnight Patrol. So, Rolling Stone magazine in 1998 dubbed Independence, Missouri the meth lab capital of the nation, and we earned that. What I will say, by 2000, we literally chased the meth people out of Jackson County. 2012, 13, and 14, Missouri still ranked 1, 3, and 2 in the nation for meth labs, but in those 3 years, and since then, there's been none in Jackson County.
Wow.
What we have now, we found 2 or 3 conversion labs the last 2 or 3 years. It's all Mexican meth in solution coming across. They do the very last step. So that's the only thing we're seeing now. Nobody's cooking meth now because we've made it too difficult for them. We thought we did a good job. I mean, I'm patting myself on the back. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? But what happened? The meth lab crisis created thousands of individuals that are addicted to methamphetamine, and we just cut the supply to nothing. So you have a huge demand with no supply. Unintended consequences, the Mexican cartel saw that and immediately dumped tons and tons of methamphetamine that they made just south of the border, transported it up here, and so that's what we're fighting now. 100% of what we fight now is Mexican cartels. 100% of the drug trade in Jackson County is controlled by Mexico. And I can prove it, and I have proven it, and I can prove it in federal court. Oxycodone was developed in 1916 in Germany. Like I said, it's synthesized from a component of heroin. Enter 1996. Remember, we're all back in the 90s. Now I'm fighting the meth lab crisis. I never heard of Oxycontin, Oxycodone. Don't know, didn't care. I was up to my ears in meth labs, right? So I didn't pay attention. One note, Kansas City is huge in meth, heroin, very little. St. Louis, a huge heroin problem, fentanyl problem, small meth problem. Why, I don't know, it's just the demographics, but that's just the way it was. I'll tell myself when I was working undercover, one of my goals, I fit in well with the biker gangs. I don't know whether that's a compliment or when I finally cleaned up and went over to, my mom never said a word, when I finally cleaned up and went home, the only thing she said is, wow, you sure do look better. She put up with it for 5 years, she didn't say anything. But with that, one of my goals, I bought a ton of methamphetamine. Bikers started it here. The bikers brought it here from the old P2P labs. That's where it started. So we just had a lot of biker gangs here that it was just a perfect storm of people, bikers, meth, that connects in California to get it here. So Purdue Pharma in 1996 developed OxyContin as an extended release morphine drug. It was initially produced and marketed as an end-of-life pain management medication. If you stop and think about it, your end-of-life pain management, you have a very, very small customer base. It's all about money. The pharmaceutical companies and the drug cartels is no different. There's no, one wears a suit. That's the only difference. So, some entrepreneur in Purdue Pharma thought if we can market this for vague chronic back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, how when I get up in the morning, I have back pain. And I'm pretty sure everybody in here has back pain when they get up in the morning. But how many of us in here have end-of-life pain management? Right? So you've just opened up an entire new customer base, and it's all about money. By 2001, OxyContin is the best-selling pain reliever in the country.
Wow.
In the early 2000s, OxyContin began to be abused by those wanting to get high. OxyContin would then become one of the most widely used and abused drugs of all time, and I can guarantee you it is. So what happened in, let me go back, Florida pain clinics started in the mid-2000s, early 90s. There was a loophole in the Florida law. I could go to Florida, I could rent out a space, an office space in a shopping mall, and I could dispense pain medications. I didn't have to be a doctor, I didn't have to be licensed. Two entrepreneuring young gym rats that work out in the gym, sold steroids on the side, decided they were going to sell OxyContin. So they opened a pain clinic, several pain clinics in Florida. They hired 5 physicians. The doctors were paid per patient. Each doctor saw up to 70 patients a day. They were paid somewhere between $160,000 and $1.2 million a year in salary. The only prescription medication that they prescribed was OxyContin. You could go in the front door, my knee hurts, here's your strip, go to the next window, plop down the money, get your OxyContin, and walk out the other door. So by the mid-2000s, the late 2000s, there was literally people coming from New England, New York, the Carolinas, and Georgia, driving to Florida, picking up their prescriptions, and then driving back up the East Coast. So the entire East Coast now is hooked on OxyContin. Another young entrepreneur detective down there decided he was going to put the George brothers in jail, and he did. He shut down all the pain clinics, changed the laws, closed the loophole. Supply and demand. OxyContin is now one of the most widely prescribed and abused drugs on the East Coast and in Florida, and there's no supply. In a 2-year period, these 5 doctors prescribed over 20 million OxyContin tablets, more than the rest of the 49 states combined. So you wonder why we have a problem and how we got here. So, go back to the poppy flower. In the early 2000s, or after we closed the meth labs down, in comes the Mexican drug cartels. And originally, Mexican drug cartels purchased cocaine and heroin from South America and then transported it into the United States. So they were nothing more than the UPS, FedEx, the U.S. Postal Service. That's all they were. About 1980s, in the 1980s, a young man named Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, you might know him. He was born in Sinaloa, Mexico. Farming family. His father grew marijuana for the Mexican drug cartels. He was then hired by several other drug cartels to establish map routes from South America into the United States. He was a genius. He is a genius. He is ruthless. He is brutal. He is a cold-blooded murderer, but he is a genius. So he thought, well, why do I have to buy it from South America? If I grow it, marijuana, the poppy flower, if I grow it, I have it, I control the production and the distribution. I don't have to pay anybody money. It's all about money and greed.
We only got 30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. How long do we have, Chuck? How much longer?
5 minutes for your group.
Okay. He started manufacturing methamphetamine because it's synthetic. He can make it year-round. You go from heroin, he supplied heroin to Florida and the East Coast to satisfy that need. He slowly switched over the heroin to the fentanyl. Fentanyl is 50 times stronger. You can sell it 50 times to 1 time on the heroin. So now he's covered the methamphetamine problem here. He's covered the heroin problem, the OxyContin problem in Florida and the East Coast. He's found that if he can manufacture methamphetamine, there's no growing season. he can manufacture it year round. He's found that if he imports fentanyl from China, there's no growing season. He doesn't have to wait for the poppy flower to grow, to flower, to do all that. Fentanyl is available 12 months out of the year. So which happened to us? Well, we went out, set up a 4-ounce heroin deal, which is a lot of heroin. We buy the heroin, we get it back, the undercover starts feeling kind of woozy, we take him to the hospital, well, it's not heroin. And we were buying directly from the cartel, but it wasn't heroin, it was fentanyl. So slowly, the cartels, the Sinaloa cartel in particular, switches heroin into fentanyl, which is where we are now. So now, nobody wants heroin anymore. We recovered 8,500 grams, which is like 10 pounds and 15. Last year we recovered 9.3. But we're back up to 15,000 grams of fentanyl and over 40,000 pills. So what happens with the counterfeit pills? Your son is not a heroin addict. He would never take a needle injected. He would never snort heroin. I won't be a drug addict. They're junkies. By God, I'm not going to do that. But hey, there's a prescription pill here. I'll take this pill. Right. So the cartels are now manufacturing counterfeit M30 OxyContin pills. Their quality control sucks, right? So they put fentanyl in literally a blender and then binding materials to hold the pill together. 98% of the pill is a binding material. So if you've ever worked out or you take a protein drink, you put it in your drink and you get that little clump in there that doesn't mix up, that's the clump that'll kill you. So some of these pills have 4 and 5 milligrams in there, enough to kill a horse. Some of them maybe have 1, some of them maybe have half. So those pills now are flooding across the border. We didn't even hear of them. In 2020, we recovered 1,000, which I think we recovered 1,000 we thought was actual OxyContin. I don't think it was. I think they were actual, the counterfeit pills. So we're up to, 1,020. We got 40,000 this year. And it's not stopping. So the only thing that's slowing us down is we don't have enough money to buy all the pills that we can find. So that's how we got here. And I'll answer any questions afterwards. I'll stay as late as you guys want. It's an honor to be here. It's very humbling to talk in front of you folks. And thank you.
Thank you.
No pressure. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here among, I was just sitting when I walked in here, I thought, I feel right at home here, I guarantee you. Anyway, Judge Lewis, I didn't know he had a second career as a singer, but he's very good. I'm Larry Beatty. I'm one of the Jackson County Combat Commissioners. I've been a commissioner for about 7 years. Was appointed commissioner, and then a year later became the chairman of the Jackson County Combat Commission. And to kind of give you maybe a starting point or whatever, there are 9 commissioners in Jackson County on the Combat Commission. We meet at we used to meet at the courthouse downtown. And out of the 9 commissioners, there's 1 conservative on the commission. Guess who that is? Wow. Yeah. I tell people, I feel like the last man standing at the Alamo with a 1-shot rifle and 2 bullets. But we get the job done. When I first came on the commission, we had a lot of problems. We had financing problems. We had, let's say, some issues with the county executive. I won't go into that. But we made a lot of course corrections along the way. We've added staff. We oversee, this year, I think alone, some $35 million of your tax money. And I am a guy, I have 3 rules I live by. First of all, I never vote myself new taxes. Rule number 2, I always follow rule number 1. And rule number 3, stay away from stupid people doing dumb things. And it works pretty well for me today. So, but that quarter of a penny countywide adds up to around $35 million. And we're a good steward of your money, I can tell you that. We've got a team on board from the director, the assistant director, and so on, that really know what they're doing. Our director, Vince Ortega, is a former police officer, and if you see a picture of him today versus when he was working narcotics undercover, you'd put him in handcuffs, I guarantee you. He looks that way. You remember that, Dan? Anyway, but with combat, we fund police, narcotics. Obviously, Dan is the prime source of that and does a hell of a good job, I'll tell you that right now. I have a lot of respect for that guy and his team. We also fund prevention and treatment. And of the 9 commissioners, there's 1 commissioner that has been on the street, is a homeless alcoholic, and knows the ropes, knows the deal. And that's me. The other people, I'm not saying they don't have a clue about alcoholism or drug addiction or whatever, but I sobered up off the street on Skid Row in Kansas City in 1981, and been sober this last June for 42 years. So I was saying, I appreciate that. I started out my career, a 40-year career in corrections and working with the criminal justice system with the federal, state, and some other agencies in between, but I started out as a corrections officer in the late 70s. And so in the work I did over the years, people would tell me, you don't understand. I go, yes, I do. I've been there and I've done that, I guarantee you. I don't have much more to say. I'm sure my time is probably up by now, but I know I speak for the combat people that we help in treatment, prevention, and on the police side and the narcotics side and so on. And it's a pleasure to be a member of that. It's a pleasure to be in a place like this with people that understand what freedom is. You know, I see several of my fellow Vietnam veterans here, and I can guarantee you, welcome home. Thank you.
You know, we love the Dylan Schneiders. We love you, Storm, Lance. We love you guys. We're sorry you went through that, but we're very happy that you've created this force to help others.
Yes, yes.
So sometimes it takes something like that to wake people up, to get them motivated, get them going. We're talking about leadership tonight. Each one of us is a leader. Each one of us needs to make a difference. Each one of us needs to pay attention and do what you can. You know, some of us could do more than others, but do what you can. My next speaker is Katie Fetzer. I'll let her take the mic, but she is protecting children here in the Kansas City area. I talked to her on the phone a month or 2 ago. I'm going, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. So I'm glad you're here, and if you can educate everybody on that. I bring these people out to talk, to educate you all on maybe a possible organization that you want to be involved in. You know, I know that we got involved in human trafficking, and several of you got involved with Rodney Hammer's group, Rehope, and you know, so that's what we're doing. We bring the speakers out with their organizations, we educate you, and if you want to become part of them or help them out, that's why you're here. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Does anybody need to stretch for a minute? Come on, guys, let's stand up for just a minute. Stretch. Tailbones maybe feeling it a bit. Just by a show of hands, how many here went to go see Sound of Freedom?
Yes.
Woo! You guys are on the ball. Awesome. Okay, I want you to stand for just one more second. And I want you to put yourself in the position of an American child who is physically exploited. You have finally gained the courage to tell somebody. You represent only 1/3 of the actual victims. Now I want everybody to sit down except for this first row. The ones standing are the ones that get help. $8 million children are reported in the United States each year as undergoing physical exploitation. 3% of them enter our very broken, very harmful foster care system. 3%. And our government says, we've got it, we'll take care of it. You guys can go ahead and sit down, thank you. Sometimes statistics need to be acted out for us to understand the severity of what we're facing. And I get this is a very hard topic. This is a topic that I've lived. I'm a mom. 7 years ago, I didn't know anything. I just had this thing from the Lord that said, you need to get involved. I'm like, what? I'm a mom. Who am I? And then I found myself in the middle of the trenches with babies who've been trafficked in our county, and I'm wiping the filth from their bodies, and I'm holding them, and I'm going, oh, what did I walk into? And what happened is a passion ignited in me that said, enough is enough. A broken society is easy to control. An addicted society is easy to control. An emotionally fragile society is easy to control. It is not by accident that these things have not been addressed at a government level. It's not an accident. It's purposeful. And the reality is, we can do something about it. And I know it's easy. How many people I've seen on social media since Sound of Freedom came out going, this is awesome, but what do we do? And you know what? Exploitation is complex, but fighting it is very simple. Because it's a complicated matter, we think that fighting it is complicated, but it's really not. It's actually very simple. Let's take the Sound of Freedom movie, because most of us saw it. That father, who, due to no fault of his own, right? What if that father had known how to recognize perpetrator behavior? What if the father had known what exploitation looks like? What if the father had known what a scout is in human trafficking? That story for that little girl and that little boy would have manifested differently. And what we began to find as we scoured through victim story after victim story, and we talked to victims and talked to victims, there was one constant denominator. Over 98% had a caring adult in their life. But those caring adults didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to recognize it, they didn't know how to engage, they didn't know how to prevent, and they didn't know how to intervene. That's not their fault. But it makes the solution pretty simple. Why are we not activating those adults in these children's lives? Why are we telling them, don't worry about it, we've got it, we'll take care of it? And instead of helping the adults to engage, That's what we're about as an organization. We're all about empowering the adults. Empowering you not with just information of a problem and going, okay, here's the problem, and you're left going, okay, great, what do we do? But actually empowering you with the simple steps that you can apply today, immediately. If the laws don't change, if this doesn't happen, if the schools don't change, what can you do today? As a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a concerned citizen, a teacher, what can you do? Tangible, applicable skills. That's what we're about as an organization, is taking these skills to the public. So, we looked at this situation of the father and the sound of freedom. Now let's look for a minute in a macro perspective. Let's zoom out a little bit and ask a bigger question. What would it take for every child in America to have someone looking out for them? It's kind of a sobering question. What would it take for every child in America to have someone looking out for them? But again, the answer is pretty simple. 1% of adults. That's all we need is 1%. And every child in America can have someone looking out for them. No, we're not going to eradicate exploitation overnight. This is a long-term fight because this has been a long-term game plan. And we need the skills in order to protect our children, to protect our grandchildren, and protect the ones next to us. We say it very simply, take care of your kids plus one more. Look out for them. Gain the skills that you need to protect them. It's small steps. Prevention is best. I've cared for and I've looked in the eyes of children who have undergone horrors. Afterwards, doing something afterwards, yes, is needed. It's vital. I completely agree with it, and I partner with organizations all day long that are in the trenches, and I've been in the trenches. But prevention is best. Yes. It's best. And prevention is obtainable. It is not this far off distant thing that we can't obtain. We can obtain prevention as a society, but it doesn't start with our government. It starts with you and me. It starts with us. It starts with us saying we're not going to live in naivete anymore. We're not going to trust when they say, oh, we have an agency for that. We are going to engage, and we're going to learn, and we're going to expand our capacity to understand evil has no limits. He is like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Means he's cloaked in disguise. As you can see, I'm very passionate. There's so many things I could talk about. And there's so many things that have already been said. The drug epidemic and everything that's connected. It's all connected. We tend to think of exploitation in categories. Okay, we have human trafficking over here. We have drug trafficking over here. Okay, we have abuse of children, that's over here. And domestic violence, that's over here. It's all connected. Exploitation, let's think about that word for a minute. What does it mean to exploit? It means to use someone for someone else's gain or benefit. It means everything. It means the transgender surgeries for children. It means abortion. It means the drug companies. It means the cartels. It means human trafficking. It means child protective services that don't protect children. All of it is the exploitation of children for the gain, often of money, but also power and control. It is time. We can no longer think of exploitation in categories. We must understand that exploitation is not a single act. It is a mentality, and it has swept our country. We are so used to exploitive behavior by our politicians, by our corporations, by our government, we no longer even think twice. It's no longer even normal. Not to you guys, but to the masses. Because you guys are awake, right? But the masses are not. They're still asleep. So what does that mean? Well, first off, we got to start broadening the horizon, showing what the exploitation and how it's a bigger issue. But the reality is, many people we know that are caring parents, caring adults, won't go see Sound of Freedom. They won't even sign up for a class that we have about protecting children because it's too hard. So how do we reach them? Because we need the masses, right? We need the majority of our countrymen to understand what's going on. Well, our organization has been trying to answer that question. And this summer and into the fall, we're launching a school advocacy initiative. This school advocacy initiative is a way for us to get in front of parents who would never go to a movie, who wouldn't go to a prevention training class, but they want to advocate for their kids in school. If you have a child or a grandchild that you're like, they won't listen to what I have to say, but they might go to a class or an information meeting about school advocacy, this is a soft introduction into them being aware of what's going on. Because we strategically have created this class to meet people where they are and gradually bring them into this discussion. Because it's important. And the majority of people, once they know, they now know. Right? The blinders are off and they now begin to see. So this is where we need you guys' help. We are a small grassroots organization. We are a bunch of moms who said, we're going to do something. So that means we don't have big marketing budgets. And we are very small, but we're hitting the ground running hard. And we're already having our training go out nationwide to people all over the nation in order to protect children. But we need your help, because on a local level, it's harder in some ways to market than it is on a national level, just because of the way the internet works and so forth. Getting people in the seats, 2 classes, 2 forums is a little bit harder, especially when we're talking about stuff that's a little bit out of the box. School advocacy, why do I need to understand school advocacy? Well, advocacy is an amazing skill that helps you be a voice for another. And those skills transcend. It's not just in school, it's in medical, it's in all kinds of things that you can be an advocate and have skills that really influence realities. I've seen it. I've been before the judges in Child Protective Court who have said from the bench that they will not align with the protection of the child. They're more aligned with their woke ideology. And guess what? Through advocacy and through the strategy of heaven, we saw that very judge have to sign an order they would have never agreed to. I've seen it. It's powerful. And as the body of Christ, we need to grow in our advocacy skills. Daniel is a great picture of advocacy. How did he advocate for the children of Israel when they were in captivity in Babylon? It's a profound story when you look at it through that lens. That's what we're here to do. And we're here to meet people where they are through the school advocacy training. Now, we understand people like you who are awake, you have a different need for different type of training. So we're here to serve. We're here to serve you. We're here to serve the community. We'll come in and train a specific type of training for you as a group if that's something you want. We'd be happy to do that. And we'll meet you with people that are already informed and awake. We can go in a really fun place. We can dive in a little bit deeper, right? But then we have the School Advocacy Initiative, which is a way for people who aren't as open, but we might be able to get them there. And we need your help. We need your help with sharing information about the community forum we have coming up on July 20th. It's in Lee Summit at the Gamber Community Center. And we have these information flyers. They look like this, and they're over here. And this community forum is a great way to get people in the community engaged and present. At that forum, it's free of charge. It's an hour and a half. We'll answer all the questions. We'll talk to them about what our all-day classes provide them. We'll talk about what advocacy is. We'll meet them where they are. We'll talk about child development and why they need to understand those basic skills and how they as a parent can be empowered to be a voice for their children. What happens when a society is empowered? What happens when a scared parent who would never stand before a school board learns to advocate for their one child? Because once they learn to advocate for their one child, they will grow in their capacity to advocate for another child. And starting to get them moving and going is the key to do that. And we're trying to meet them where they are. And so we have a multiple plan. So we can encounter groups like you guys who really want to go someplace, and we can go deep in our training. And then we have other groups where we're meeting them where they are, which is an initial introduction to, hey, we have a problem, right? Empowering is a unique word. We've heard the word fight tonight. This is a fight. And we're here to empower the fight. The fight against our children is raging in the United States. But we can be their voice, and we can stand up, and we can rise up, and we can say enough is enough. Thank you so much. I so appreciate your time.
She's going to stay afterwards if you want to talk to her. It's called Stop Child Exploitation, all one word, .org. StopChildExploitation.org. And will you stay afterwards for people to talk to you?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I mean, what an incredible group right out of Lee Summit to get involved with. And what I loved what she said is pay attention to your children, pay attention to your grandchildren, and pay attention to one more. Whether it's the child next door or whomever. Keep your eyes peeled. We talk about it all the time. Be alert. Be aware. I told you there was going to be some heavy conversation tonight on fentanyl, on child exploitation. We've talked about human trafficking for a year and a half, 2 years now, and it's kind of funny how it's all coming to a head with this movie and with this education that is, that movie got filmed 5 years ago. And they couldn't get the movie out because Hollywood wouldn't let it out. Disney had it. Disney wouldn't even let it out.
Of course not.
It just floors me. Now it's out and it's the best-selling movie in the last couple of weeks. So, I think the real world, I think the conservatives, I think the Christians are going to see it and are waking up. I hope and pray that that's the case, and that we can save these kids. We can save more and more and more of these kids. We can possibly stop what's going on, the drugs coming across the border. I mean, golly, how does that happen in America? I'm an angry man.
Good anger. Yeah, that's right. Good anger.
It's, actually, I'm right on time. It's 8:30. I've asked Sean Smith to talk a little bit about assessments, and he's here. And then I've got Hunter. What's Hunter's last name? Hunter Kelly. I got a Hunter Kelly here, and then I have Jeff Coleman here. But, well, yeah, sorry, Jeff. I know you. You know I know you. But everybody, who's been assessed? Who likes their assessment?
Mine
went down. Well,
I'm moving in with him.
some that are outrageously high, some are probably right on, and every now and then there's one that went a little lower, which is fine. But I went down to the appeal board today. My appointment was at 11 o'clock. I got out of there at 4:30. I ran into Sean on the way in. He didn't know I was going to be there 6 hours though. But tell everybody what's going on, if you don't mind. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Chuck. And so first off, I'm going to say I'm almost embarrassed to be talking about money and things that affect your wallet after hearing things that really affect people's lives, and especially children's lives, like we just did. So I want to thank you for that message. That's right down to my soul. This stuff is what I've been spending my time on the last few weeks, maybe even longer than that. So Jackson County assessments, I think a big part of you would agree something went terribly, terribly wrong this year. We did a little thing on Saturday down at the courthouse where we had people come out and was anybody at the courthouse on Saturday? So a few of you had signs and plates with people and just what their assessment increase was. Is amazing. There's people 300%. Okay? So other people 30%. They're still mad because no matter how you cut it, if you can't spend that money on your taxes and you don't have that ability, you're going to be mad. And I will say this. So I'm elected on the Jackson County Legislature. I'm one of 9, 7 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Today we voted and passed a measure that is what we call a resolution, meaning it's not law. It's like a very strongly worded suggestion. That's the best we could do under the law to Frank White. And it basically said, this is a mess and you need to fix it. And until you can fix it, you got to cap people's increases at not more than 15%. And that passed today, I'll say unanimously. 1 person was absent, 1 person abstained. But 7 yeses, no no's. So to me, given the makeup of the group, that was amazing.
Yes, yeah.
What's that? He doesn't have to sign resolutions. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's not like a law he would have to sign or veto. This, he can just kind of do nothing. What I will tell you is people say, well, a resolution can't do anything. I said, well, first off, when we passed another resolution about the landfill down here, I didn't really think it could do anything, but what it did is it set people into action. Yeah. We had lobbyists down at the state capitol that started lobbying the governor. It really does do something. Now, is it enough? No. Is it the most we have the authority to do? It seems to be. If I can find more, that's great. If there's a lawyer in the crowd or you know one, I'm guessing that any lawyer that wants to file a class action suit on behalf of the citizens of Jackson County can take the fact that the legislators passed a resolution that said something's gone wrong, and that would make pretty good evidence, right? Like you've got the elected body representing the people saying, this is a mess and you have to fix it. Yet the lawyer for the county argued, by the way, Frank didn't show up, right? If anybody can find pictures from tonight's South Dakota Monarchs, it's the Monarchs game they're playing up in South Dakota. If anybody has a picture of Frank up there, that would be fascinating. I don't know if that's where he's at, but I mean, he's been, moonlighting as a second base or first base coach for the Monarchs, I guess. Anyway, so I think we actually did do something today, and it'll take more. It's not the end. And Chuck spent hours and hours down there appealing an assessment. If anybody here hasn't appealed your assessment, we also had a resolution that said, BOE, Board of Equalization, you should extend the deadline. We've had so many people who can't get through on the phone, can't use the website, we've had so many problems, you need to extend the deadline. We voted on that and passed it, but before we even got there, the fact that we had that teed up as a resolution telling them what to do, they took action last week and passed it. So these resolutions, even though they don't have the power of law, they do accomplish a little something. Donna in the back.
Yeah, quick question. So by pushing this all forward, the levy rate hearings are in September based on the values provided to the county in August. Is the county going to get the values to the taxing jurisdiction in time to set the levy rate?
So you start to talk about downstream consequences of these problems. So yes, on August 1st, Gail McCann Beatty will send to all the different Jackson jurisdictions, like your school district, here's how much all the properties in your jurisdiction are worth, and they have to set the levy rate based off that. I will tell you that these appeal hearings are going to continue for months. So this all, the originating mess leaves the school district guessing what their total property value is to guess what the levy rate should be, and they have to set it. And so the bottom line is the mess needs to be taken care of better than it has been this time. I don't stick up for Frank or Gail a lot, but I will say this. This goes back, now they've been in office 5-6 years, so they've had time to fix this, but this goes back a decade or more, right? That property values have not been accurate. And frankly, and I'll point at Jeff Coleman or any state rep, Dan, hi, like property taxes are a terrible way to try to tax people, right? They just, so every day you show up to vote, somebody said they don't vote for a new tax. I think it was Chuck. Like, think about shrinking property taxes, and if your school district needs that revenue, come up with other ways for them to find it, right? The last thing I'm going to say, because I don't know how much time you gave me, but I just wanted to tell you, we did pass something, we are trying, and it's still a mess, and you still need to appeal. If you haven't appealed, appeal, because what we did does not just draw a line in the sand. The last thing I'll tell you, anybody see that there was a Supreme Court decision against the federal government and Anthony Fauci saying the federal government can't limit free speech, it can't go around and tell people what's true and not true. Right. Guess what your county administration did today? They set up a information bureau that basically, just in the news in the last couple hours, basically said people are lying in the county. So they're basically, the administration is trying to set up their own little information bureau that says this is true information and this is false information. The funny thing is that the first thing they called out as a lie was against one of my colleagues who happens to be a Democrat, Manny Abarca, who said, we want the administration to do this. We want them to cap these increases. And the administration came out and said, that's a lie. It's like, no, it's really true. We really do want you to do this. The administration says, but we can't do that. It's like, well, you did it 2 years ago when it was COVID. You did it 2 years before that. Like, so just know that you do have some people fighting for you, and that the county is a freaking mess. Any other questions before I hand it back over to Chuck? Because I know everybody wants to go home. And I'll be around. I got a Quest bar is all I got for food all day today, so I'm not promising accuracy of any information anymore. But Mr. Hendricks.
What happened to the Missouri legislature vote that they were going to cap any real estate property taxes for anybody that was over 65?
Okay. So it's 65 and older is the question. So what was passed and was signed by the governor is Senate Bill 190. Senate Bill 190 says if you are Social Security eligible, that you can, if the county enacts an ordinance, your property taxes can be frozen. Okay? So this is good. What I'm going to ask is if there's any teachers here, anybody who's ever been a federal government employee, county employee, and maybe didn't have to participate in Social Security, that therefore might not be Social Security eligible. So it's not perfect. I would like it to be anybody over 62 or 65 can have a flat cap, right? But it's not perfect. We haven't enacted it yet at the county level. We actually can't until the governor signs it, which just happened this week, and we were worried about this other thing first. But I'm pretty confident we will pass it. But I just want to let you know, like, it is not perfect, and if you aren't Social Security eligible, it's not going to affect you, and it's not going to affect this year.
Real quickly, because you guys can ask Sean questions afterwards. You can stick around. If you got a protein bar in your pocket, bring him a protein bar. Oh yeah, we got candy bars with nuts or without nuts over there. Hershey candy bars coming out with a candy bar called He-She. So Jeremy's candies came out with a he, him, have nuts. I knew that. I knew you could get a kick out of that tonight. Again, if you want to buy a couple, they're $5 a bar. If you want to buy them, it'll just replenish me on my purchase. If not, I'll eat them all at my office. The deal I wanted to say, Sean, thank you for coming, but instead of hitting people every 2 years on the house they own, why can't we maybe hit them on 10% when they sell it?
Yeah, amen.
And when they've got the money, when they sell their house, and that way people, like, I live here at Lake Lottawanna, built in 1929. There's people out here that have purchased their house 50 or 60 years ago for $100,000 that are getting assessed for $800, $900, or $1 million today. They can't afford to live in the subdivision that they raised their family in because they're on a fixed income now. They can't afford the taxes. And it doesn't matter if it's Lake Lottawanna or if it's Hyde Park or where it is. And we need to...
That's the games when they're realized, and talk to Jeff Coleman.
Jeff Coleman's got a good plan. But why can't we vote about it? Why can't we wake up people and vote for the right things? I don't know. It just frustrates me. Jeff, come on up here if you don't mind. Hunter, where are you?
Here, sir.
Come on up. I'm just going to give the mic, and you guys can each talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll. What time is it? You get 4 minutes.
I got him.
There's always a timer on me.
I know, Jeff.
This is the most frustrated I've been in the last 4 years. I've been doing this for 4 years in a row. I got it the farthest I could this year. I got it to the Senate, and they already had their minds made up on what bill they were going to do, and that was Senate Bill 190. So we're going to refile the bill, maybe, because I'm searching for something that Chuck just mentioned. I'm searching for some other method through other states that they've been successful at of doing away with property tax altogether and having some kind of other solution. So at worst case, you know that my bill will have a cap of 2% per year or CPI, whichever is lower. But I've gotten more motivation to do something different because this is ridiculous. And so I just appreciate all of your support. I'm going to need you to be as frustrated as you are right now in about another 6 to 8 months whenever I get my legislation out there and get it to the committees and the floor and the Senate. Because without you, right now they think that they've done everything they need to do. Just so you know, they help the 65-year-olds or the Social Security eligible people, and they stop the taxation of Social Security. It's all in the same bill. I'm not going to ask this, but unless you make $75,000 or more in retirement, as a single person or $100,000 or more as a married couple, you never got taxed in Missouri on your Social Security anyway. So we made this big thing, oh, we stopped Social Security taxes. No, we didn't. We stopped them on the high income earners, which is great. I'm glad about that. But we made it sound like everybody was getting taxed under Social Security, and they weren't. So the last thing I'm going to say is what Chuck just mentioned. I'm a financial advisor. People, when they have a portfolio with me, and I get that to grow really big, they don't get taxed on that money unless they sell it. So why are we taxing people on their homes on values that are ghost values? You haven't ever received any money yet. You're still paying taxes on that extra amount. It goes right back to what Chuck said. So please be patient with me. I'm going to be trying to find a way to get away from the property tax and take care of the other issues as well and keep our houses first. So thank you very much.
I own a real estate company, I'm a broker, and I encourage each and every one of you to appeal. And if you think it's right, or if it's a little bit high, just appeal to the number it was last year.
Yeah.
So when they say, what do you think the value of your house is? Just use your last assessment number. Let's just keep Jackson County as busy as we can.
Where do we appeal? You can do it online, but it's going to be messed up.
Yeah.
But they extended it, so you can still try to go on there, get a case, and then like I have my hearing tomorrow, but I did it a couple weeks ago. Jackson County?
It's Jackson County. There's
Jackson County Gov.
It's on your assessment.
I'll be in the back of the room.
It tells you right on.
And tell people.
Who'll be in the back of the room?
Sean.
Sean will be in the back of the room. Anybody needs any information to appeal. I've got the website here, but just talk to Sean afterwards. I like each and every one of you. You're part of We the People. I've got a sheet of paper if you want to fill out about your house, subdivision, all that kind of stuff. You can fill it out and give it to your favorite realtor. I didn't say me. I said give it to your favorite realtor because this is the information they're going to need. And I'm not trying to chase an ambulance or anything like that. So if you want this information, that's fine. We're going to finish up tonight with Hunter Kelly. He's an assistant with Josh Holly.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. I'll make you up some time. Can y'all hear me okay in the back?
Oh, yeah.
Great. If we haven't met yet, my name is Hunter Kelly here on behalf of Senator Josh Hawley. In my official capacity, I'm his Deputy State Director. And I just have two quick updates for y'all today. The first topic is on the topic of China owning U.S. farmland. And the second topic is on Joe Biden's Department of Justice. So, starting with the first, earlier this Congress, Senator Hawley introduced legislation to ban Chinese entities, to ban individuals associated with the Chinese Communist Party from owning farmland in the United States. The reality is no one associated with the CCP should own farmland in this country. It hurts. It's a threat to our national food supply chain. It's a national security threat when they own farmland near our military installations. And we know that it hurts our farmers. At the end of 2020, Chinese entities owned more than 338,000 acres of farmland in the United States. That should be banned. And Senator Hawley's legislation would do just that. So that's my first update. Second update. Here's what we know about Joe Biden's Department of Justice. This administration will watch people get executed in the streets, and they will do nothing. They'll watch fentanyl destroy communities across this state and across the country and do nothing. Tragically, they are doing nothing. But if you're a parent and you go to a school board meeting, they're going to label you a terrorist. If you go to church, they're going to send informants undercover into your church to spy on you. That's something that this DOJ has actually recommended doing. There's reports that that's actually happened. And if you're a pro-life demonstrator, this DOJ is going to send agents to your home and maybe arrest you in front of your family. So why is this DOJ going after pro-life demonstrators? It's because this White House wants them to. Why is this DOJ letting protesters go to the homes of Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Barrett? It's because this White House wants them to. This Department of Justice has been weaponized like nothing we've seen before in the history of this country. And at a minimum, Senator Hawley has said Attorney General Merrick Garland should resign or be impeached. FBI Director Christopher Wray should be removed from office, and the FBI reformed from top to bottom. And what this has made clear, although our constitutional framework of government is strong, there is deep, deep corruption in our federal government, in our FBI, and our DOJ. And we're going to have to make it a focus to root it out. So those are my 2 updates. If you have any questions, I'll be hanging around after. If we haven't met yet, I'd love to meet you. Thank you.
What am I doing? It's 10 to 9. What are we going to talk about for 10 minutes? Kim? Pardon? Did you say super fast? Super fast.
Okay, so
What update?
that's yes. So at last month's school board meeting, in May, 41 books of the 45 that I appealed were allowed. They were retained by majority vote, not unanimous, thanks to our 3 conservative-leaning board members. They voted against it, but 4 books were set aside to be reviewed. One they discussed at the June board meeting. It's called Damsel. Despite our 3 ladies standing up and saying, nope, this is inappropriate, the majority of the board disagreed and the book was retained. Well, there are 3 more books that they're reviewing. My assumption from what it sounded like, I know Regina's back there, is that they'll be doing 1 book each month. So at the coming board meeting on July 20th, they'll be discussing another one of those books, but hopefully by then, I will have my other appeals submitted, because the other 32 books that I originally submitted complaints over have come back. 29 of them were retained. The other 3 were removed for frivolous reasons, like low circulation count and stuff like that. So I'm still working on my appeal. My plan is to have it submitted before the next board meeting, so hopefully they can address it at that board meeting. But I would appreciate your prayers on that, because I legit put it off for the last week and a half because my brain and my heart just can't take it. But I would appreciate your prayers, and if please show up at the meeting on the 20th, because having warm bodies in the room that disagree with what they're doing, or just hold them accountable for what they're doing, is awesome. I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
I called her Kim. I know her name's Kristen. You know how I am with names. Peace to you too. Hey, there's pornography in the high school libraries. Kristen is the reason that our group even was aware of it, because most parents aren't even aware of it. And the porn that I started to read last January, and they turned off the YouTube and they turned off my mic and they escorted me out with the police. It's X-rated pornography that a 14-year-old can check out in the Lee Summit High School libraries. Now, we've got to do something about that. We've got 3 conservative board members. We've got 2 openings next April. If we don't get those 2 in, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I'm going to go ballistic. I apologize in advance.
You're going to be angry? Are you going to be angry?
I'm going to become angry. But what I'm saying is it just takes a majority of conservative board members to make the difference. They're getting voted down 4-3 right now, and they're not budging, they're not changing. We've got to get the majority next year.
Yeah.
I've been corrected. The meeting is on the 27th. I'm sorry. It's not the normal 3rd Thursday of the month. It's the 27th of the month. Please be there 7 o'clock. Stansbury Leadership Center.
Thank you very much. Dan,
Okay, we want to take the school board in Lee Summit. I'll tell you a way we can do it. It's one neighborhood at a time, and it's the Project 24, Together We Win. And that is a project that we're rolling out through the Jackson County Republican Committee. I would say if you want to come next Saturday, or the 22nd Saturday at 10 o'clock to the headquarters, you can get some information on it there. But I would tell you this: one guy in one precinct out of 55 in Blue Springs in a low turnout election, which the school boards are low turnout elections, one guy probably changed the results of an entire city's election. One guy in one neighborhood. So come learn.
We had a lot of information tonight. We have some wonderful people speak, educate us, leave a few bucks for Callie, buy some candy bars if you want them. I don't care if you do or not. And leave a couple of bucks to help pay for rent if you don't mind. I'm not trying to take your money, just trying to take a few bucks.
Last month, we asked the question if you'd be interested in knowing a little bit about independent news. Listening to the three initials, including Fox, you're kind of in the dark. I have a handout that is on the table over here. It says independent news on top. And the last line is, you're going to be surprised at what you hear. It tells you about how to go to the apps of Rumble and Telegram. If you're not listening to that kind of stuff, you're in the dark. There's a lot of stuff that we need to know. How many people understand that the Obamas were the first gay couple to occupy the White House? Thank you.
Thank you.
David has a question.
David, where's David?
David ran for the school board.
Hang on.
Why is it that we just allow them to keep raising our taxes? They set aside $1 million to provide transportation for women to go and get abortions in other states.
Yeah.
They spent $18 million that Lance warned us about in advance to get our property reassessed.
Yep.
And we act like, well, the taxes just keep going up. I got a 3% raise. Why should I pay 15% more tax? Why can't they learn to live within their means instead of just keep raising taxes all the time?
Agree 100%, David. Agree 100%. Hey, you all. Thank you for being part of the We the People. For you newcomers, I hope we pass